The twin suns of Vera 7 were sinking behind jagged cliffs, casting long shadows across the dusty colony. The hum of machinery mixed with the distant cries of workers finishing the day's labor, but beneath the calm, there was tension. Human miners and settlers had barely begun to scratch the surface of the planet's rare resources when the first signs of an alien presence appeared. Lieutenant Mara Vane tightened the straps of her utility belt and scanned the horizon. She had been stationed at Outpost Gamma for only 3 months, yet every nerve in her body told her that something was coming. Her squad, a small group of seasoned soldiers and newly recruited civilians, moved through the winding corridors of the mining facility. Mara's eyes flicked from shadows to shadows, anticipating movement that wasn't there. Yet, "Stay sharp," she whispered, though her squad barely needed the warning. They had been briefed repeatedly on the reports of Krithar scouting vessels in the outer system. Few humans had ever seen the Krithar in person, but the descriptions were enough. Towering, insectoid warriors, faster and stronger than any human, with armor that seemed impervious to conventional weapons. Suddenly, a low, rumbling vibration shook the ground beneath their feet. Dust fell from the ceilings and distant alarms began to wail. Mara's heart pounded, but she kept her expression calm. The Krithar had arrived. Outside, a massive shadow passed over the outpost. Mara ran to the main observation deck and saw the horror. Sleek black ships, far larger than anything humans had ever built, hovered above the colony. Their hulls shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the dying light of the twin suns. And then came the ground forces, Krithar warriors moving with terrifying speed and precision, descending in formation like a storm made of living armor. "Lieutenant, they're landing," shouted Corporal Jin, his voice tight with fear. The soldiers scrambled for their positions, rifles drawn, but Mara noticed something alarming. The Krithar were not just attacking, they were observing, studying. They moved with the kind of patience that suggested strategy, not chaos. Mara's squad rushed to the defensive perimeter, where sandbags and improvised barricades offered minimal protection. Explosions erupted nearby as Krithar plasma cannons fired, tearing chunks of rock and metal into the air. Human soldiers returned fire, but the energy beams had little effect on the alien armor. One by one, Mara watched her comrades fall or be forced to retreat. Panic rippled through the remaining defenders, but she forced herself to stay focused. Amid the chaos, Mara noticed a massive Krithar warrior charging toward a group of civilians trying to escape through a narrow canyon. Its 6 limbs moved in perfect synchronization, and its clawed hands were lethal weapons. The soldiers in Mara's unit aimed their weapons, but the creature was too fast. Before anyone could act, Mara found herself moving, almost instinctively, in front of the youngest recruits. There was no time to grab a weapon. None were close enough. Her hands were empty, her body exposed, yet Mara stepped forward, meeting the alien head-on. The creature lunged with a speed that would have been impossible for a human to match. Mara ducked, sidestepped, and struck with her bare hands, aiming at joints and soft tissue. The alien recoiled, momentarily confused, giving Mara a brief window. She ducked again, rolling under a swinging arm, and delivered a punch to its midsection. Sparks flew where metal met metal, and she felt her knuckles sting. The alien shrieked, a sound that was both mechanical and organic, and Mara realized that fear wasn't the only weapon she had. The creature was reacting to unpredictability. Humans were not supposed to fight like this, and she used every ounce of speed and strategy her training had instilled. Behind her, civilians scrambled to safer ground, and a few soldiers followed, rallying to her sudden courage. Mara struck, dodged, and twisted, her bare hands moving in perfect rhythm with her instincts. Every blow counted, every movement precise. The massive alien fell back, disoriented, and Mara pushed forward. The entire encounter lasted only minutes, yet it felt like hours. When the last strike landed, the creature collapsed, groaning but still alive. Mara's chest heaved, sweat dripping from her brow, but she did not falter. Her squad watched, stunned, as she stood over the fallen Krithar unscathed. It was more than bravery. It was a display of human ingenuity, reflex, and determination. Wordlessly, Mara's actions became a symbol, not just for her small group, but for anyone watching from the outpost. Unbeknownst to Mara, far above in orbit, a shadow loomed. The Krithar Queen, Zithara, observed everything from the command deck of her flagship. She had seen countless species try to resist her dominion, but never one that fought with such raw courage and unpredictability. Her many eyes, each reflecting a part of the battlefield, focused entirely on Mara. Unlike other humans who fought with weapons or numbers, this one moved with something unfamiliar: strategy, instinct, and fearlessness. The queen leaned forward, her claws tapping rhythmically on the control surface. Her alien generals were beside her, awaiting orders, but she did not respond immediately. She had a new assessment to make, one that could alter the Krithar strategy entirely. This human, unarmed and yet lethal, might be more dangerous than their technology alone. Back on the ground, Myra did not pause to admire herself. There were more Krithar incoming, more civilians to protect, and the outpost was crumbling. She rallied her squad, issuing clear commands in her calm, steady voice. "Fall back to the canyon, protect the civilians, use the terrain." Her soldiers obeyed, inspired by her courage. Even the most fearful recruits felt a surge of confidence watching their lieutenant move like a whirlwind, striking fear into creatures thought invincible. As they retreated, Mara noticed that the aliens hesitated. Not all of them, but some did. The Krithar were not used to opponents who moved so unpredictably. Every human step, every improvised strike, disrupted their programming and strategy. It was as if the aliens had no protocol for dealing with someone who did not fear death and refused to rely on weapons. The humans reached a narrow canyon that snaked through jagged cliffs. It was a natural choke point, dangerous for humans, but deadly for unwary aliens. Mara ordered her squad to prepare defenses using rocks, debris, and whatever tools they could find. She herself stayed at the front, watching the approach of the Krithar, muscles tense, mind calculating. From above, the queen's attention did not waver. She considered descending herself, but something made her hesitate. The human's courage was raw, but it was also calculated, intelligent. She had seen leaders before, but Mara was different. Her body moved with rhythm and precision. Her eyes constantly scanned for weakness, not only in the enemy but in herself. Night fell and the twin moons cast silver light across the canyon. The humans set traps, concealed themselves, and prepared ambushes. Mara's bare-handed fight earlier had set a precedent. Her people had seen that humans could fight and survive without depending solely on weapons. This realization sparked hope, something alien soldiers had never encountered from the outset of their campaigns. The first wave of Krithar moved into the canyon. Explosions rocked the walls as traps detonated. Rocks fell from above, collapsing on armored warriors. Mara and her squad fought with precision, striking at joints, eyes, and other weak points. It was chaos, but a controlled chaos guided by human creativity and instinct. Each human strike, each strategic move drove fear into the hearts of the alien invaders. Hours passed. The human casualties were significant, but the Krithar suffered even more. Mara's bare-handed tactics, combined with the clever use of terrain, proved devastating. Soldiers who had previously doubted their chances now fought with renewed vigor. They followed Mara's lead, not because she was a superior fighter alone, but because she demonstrated that human ingenuity could rival even the most advanced alien technology. At dawn, the canyon fell silent, save for the groans of injured Krithar and the quiet exhaustion of human soldiers. Myra stood among her people, bruised and battered, but unbowed. Her bare hands bore cuts and scrapes, but they had delivered a message. Humans were not weak, humans were not predictable, and humans would not cower before alien might. Above, Queen Zithara remained in her command ship, her many eyes focused on Mara. The alien army had faced unexpected resistance, and for the first time they hesitated. The Queen's expression, if it could be called that, shifted from curiosity to intrigue. This human had potential far beyond what the Krithar had anticipated. Mara did not yet know that she had captured the attention of the most powerful being in the Krithar dominion. All she knew was that she had protected her squad, saved civilians, and survived against odds that should have been insurmountable. And for the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself a small, fleeting smile. The battle was far from over, but one truth had been established. Humans could fight, humans could endure, and humans could inspire. Mara's bare-handed courage was a spark that could ignite hope across the colonies and perhaps, one day, change the balance of power in the galaxy. The twin suns rose higher, painting the canyon walls with light, and Mara prepared for what would come next. She did not fear the Krithar. She feared only complacency. And as long as she lived, as long as her people stood beside her, the human spirit would never falter. The dawn light spilled over the jagged canyon walls, and the humans began to move cautiously. Mara's squad, though tired and bruised, were filled with a new determination. They had survived the first wave of the Krithar assault, and for the first time, they believed that humans could resist, even triumph, against the seemingly unstoppable alien army. Mara walked among her soldiers, checking weapons, assessing injuries, and offering words of encouragement. Her bare hands, scarred from yesterday's fight, flexed instinctively as she demonstrated defensive grips and quick strikes. Her squad watched her with awe and trust. She had shown them that courage and creativity could overcome brute strength. "Listen," Mara said, her voice calm but firm. "We can't fight them head-on. They are faster, stronger, and better armored, but we know this canyon. We know the terrain. That is our advantage. Use it, think ahead, move smarter than they do." The soldiers nodded, energized by her confidence. Mara assigned teams to scout the canyon's upper ledges, others to set traps along narrow passages, and some to guard the civilians hiding in carved-out alcoves. Every move was precise, every decision calculated to make the Krithar pay for every step they took. Hours passed in tense silence. Mara kept her senses sharp, scanning every shadow and listening to every sound. Then it came, a faint metallic echo from above. The Krithar were returning. Mara signaled her squad to take positions. The first wave emerged from the canyon entrance, a line of towering warriors moving with machine-like precision. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim morning light. Mara's heart did not race with fear. Instead, it burned with determination. She had faced them once and survived. She would do so again. Mara's squad launched their traps simultaneously. Rocks tumbled from ledges and spiked logs swung into the advancing aliens. A few fell, some disoriented, but most pushed forward relentlessly. Mara moved with the humans, striking with her bare hands at joints, weak points, and eyes. Each movement was calculated, every attack precise. One of the Krithar warriors lunged at a young recruit hiding behind a rock. Mara intercepted, twisting the alien's limb in an unnatural angle. The creature screeched in surprise as Mara used its own momentum against it, throwing it into a trap she had set minutes earlier. The other humans watched in awe, realizing that their success depended not on weapons, but on ingenuity and coordination. Meanwhile, Queen Zethira observed from orbit, her many eyes fixed on Mara. She had watched countless battles, countless species fight for survival, yet this human fascinated her. She was unarmed, yet deadly. She did not rely solely on brute strength or technology. Her strategy, her unpredictability, and her courage were unique. The Krithar generals whispered among themselves, their communication a series of clicks and pulses. They had underestimated humans. No species had ever fought this way. They had expected panic, fear, and surrender. Instead, they faced resistance that was intelligent, coordinated, and terrifying. Mara noticed a Krithar squad attempting to flank them from a side passage. She acted immediately. With a swift gesture, she signaled her team, and a coordinated counterattack unfolded. Rocks rained from above, pits opened to swallow the advancing aliens, and Mara herself led a charge that struck the Krithar from the side. Her hands moved faster than most could follow, striking, twisting, and throwing. The humans gained momentum. The Krithar faltered, a hesitation that spread through their ranks like wildfire. They had never encountered an opponent who used intelligence over technology so effectively. Mara's squad pressed the advantage, moving with synchronized precision, turning the narrow canyon into a trap-filled maze that only humans could navigate efficiently. Hours turned into a grueling battle of endurance. Mara's body ached, her hands bloodied from relentless strikes, yet she did not stop. Every time a soldier faltered, she was there, encouraging, guiding, fighting beside them. She became more than a leader, she became a symbol, a spark of hope. At one point, a massive Krithar warrior cornered Mara in a narrow canyon. It towered above her, claws glinting in the sunlight. Most humans would have panicked, but Mara's mind raced. She dodged a swinging claw, rolled under a strike, and jabbed her hands into the creature's joints. Using leverage, she forced the alien into a pit she had prepared earlier. The warrior fell with a roar, trapped but still alive. Mara didn't pause to celebrate. She moved on, scanning the battlefield, eyes sharp and calculating. The civilians hiding in alcoves watched in silent awe. They had fled in terror only hours earlier, but now they saw humans fighting with courage and cleverness. Mara's bare-handed tactics were not just effective, they were inspiring. Children and adults alike felt a surge of pride, realizing that their species could survive and even prevail against overwhelming odds. By midday, the Krithar were struggling. Their formation was broken, their discipline shaken. Mara's tactics had forced them into unfamiliar territory, literally and figuratively. The canyon, which had once been a natural barrier, now served as a weapon in human hands. Every trap, every strike, every clever maneuver amplified the human's strength. Queen Zethara's fascination grew. She had not expected to see a species that could combine courage, strategy, and improvisation so effectively. She ordered her generals to withdraw temporarily, observing how Mara continued to lead her people. The humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability was dangerous, even for the Krithar. Mara, unaware of the queen's interest, pressed forward. She moved among her soldiers, checking positions, adjusting traps, and personally engaging with any Krithar that slipped through. Each human victory, however small, built morale and confidence. Her squad no longer followed her out of orders. They followed her out of belief, admiration, and trust. As the sun climbed higher, the battle reached a crucial turning point. A Krithar commander, larger and more powerful than the rest, emerged to reclaim control. Mara faced it head-on. She had no weapon, only her hands and wits. The creature lunged, claws aimed to kill. Mara dodged, rolling under the strike, and countered with a precise jab to its exposed midsection. Using momentum, she twisted, slammed it into a rock wall, and delivered a series of rapid strikes that forced it back. Her squad joined in, exploiting the distraction, and together they brought down the commander. The remaining Krithar faltered. They had faced countless warriors, but none had fought with Mara's intelligence, speed, and daring. Human determination and creativity were not supposed to match alien might, but it did. By late afternoon, the canyon was silent except for the groans of the wounded and the steady breathing of exhausted humans. Mara stood at the forefront, hands bloodied, clothing torn, yet eyes bright with unyielding resolve. She had not only survived, she had turned the tide of the battle. Civilians emerged cautiously from their hiding places. They had witnessed the unimaginable, humans standing tall against superior alien warriors, using brains over brawn, courage over fear. Children pointed at Mara with wide eyes. Soldiers clasped her hand, shook her arm, or simply nodded in silent respect. Mara's legend was already taking shape. Far above, Queen Zethara's gaze remained fixed. She had learned something important. Humans were not predictable. They could endure, adapt, and innovate. Mara was the embodiment of those qualities. The queen began to see humans in a new light, not just as prey, but as a species with potential far beyond their apparent physical limitations. Mara, unaware of the queen's assessment, moved among her squad, planning the next steps. The Krithar would regroup, she knew. They were relentless, but so was humanity. If humans could think, adapt, and fight like this, the galaxy had underestimated them. And that would be a mistake the Krithar would pay for. Even as the sun set, casting long shadows across the canyon, Mara remained vigilant. She trained her soldiers, taught civilians how to use the terrain, and continued to refine her tactics. Every movement, every decision, every act of courage reinforced the growing reputation of humans as a force the Krithar could not ignore. The Battle of the Canyon had been won, but the war was far from over. Mara understood that. She also understood something more important. Humans were more than survivors. They were thinkers, innovators, and fighters. Their strength lay not just in weapons, but in their minds, their courage, and their unyielding will. By nightfall, the canyon was quiet. Fires from the destroyed alien machines dotted the landscape, casting flickering shadows. Mara stood alone for a moment, looking at the horizon, imagining the battles to come. She knew the Krithar would return, stronger and more determined. But Mara had seen what humans could do when pushed to the edge. Her bare hands ached, but they were a reminder. Humans could fight, humans could endure, and humans could inspire. She had sparked hope not just for her squad, but for every human watching, hiding, and surviving on Vera 7. And in that spark, the seeds of something greater had been planted, a defiance the Krithar would never forget. The twin moons rose again, casting silver light over the canyon. Mara flexed her hands, steadying her breathing, and whispered to herself, "We will survive. We will fight, and we will show them what humanity can do." Her squad gathered around her, tired but unbroken. Together, they watched the horizon, ready for the next wave. And somewhere far above, Queen Zithara watched too, silent, fascinated, and wary. Myra had become more than a soldier. She had become a symbol of human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The human colony on Vera 7 had survived the first wave of the Krithar assault, but the reprieve was brief. Myra knew the aliens would not retreat for long. Her squad worked tirelessly, repairing barricades, setting traps, and training civilians to defend themselves. Every human on the planet now understood one undeniable truth. Survival depended on courage, intelligence, and the ability to act without hesitation. Mara's reputation had grown. Soldiers whispered her name like a legend, and civilians shared tales of the young lieutenant who had fought a Krithar warrior barehanded and lived. But the stories reached more than human ears. Far above in orbit, Queen Zithara studied Mara with intense focus. This human was not like others. She was unpredictable, clever, and fearless. The queen had watched countless species fall before her dominion, yet none had fought like this. Mara intrigued her. The Krithar launched their second assault at night. Mara had predicted it. She moved among her squad, checking positions, reinforcing traps, and preparing civilians to stay hidden. The alien ships hovered silently over the canyon, and then the Krithar warriors descended, faster and more precise than before. Their formation was perfect, their intent clear. They would crush the humans once and for all. Mara did not hesitate. She positioned her squad at key points in the canyon, giving them orders that emphasized strategy over brute force. She herself took the front line, unarmed but confident. Her bare hands would be her tools, her intelligence her weapon. The first Krithar that approached was a towering warrior, its armored limbs glinting in the moonlight. Myra dodged its initial strike, rolling across the rocky ground, and used its momentum to throw it into a trap set moments earlier. Her squad followed her lead, striking at weak points with rocks, poles, and improvised weapons. Every move Mara made was calculated to maximize human advantage while exploiting alien weaknesses. From orbit, Queen Zithara watched silently. The humans were resilient, but this human, Mara, was extraordinary. The way she moved, the way she fought, the way she inspired others, it was unlike anything the Krithar had encountered. The queen's curiosity grew into fascination. She wanted to witness Mara firsthand, to test the human against her own power. Minutes later, a shadow fell over the canyon. The queen herself had descended in a personal transport, accompanied by her elite guard. Her presence radiated authority and danger. The ground trembled as she stepped forward, her many eyes glinting in the moonlight. Myra's squad froze, awe and fear mingling in their eyes. Myra, however, did not falter. She met the queen's gaze directly, her own expression calm and resolute. "Humans," the queen's voice echoed, deep and commanding. "You have shown courage, but you cannot win. Surrender and your species will be spared." Myra shook her head. "We don't surrender, not to you, not ever." The queen's elite guard moved forward, ready to attack. Myra assessed them quickly. They were faster and stronger than the first wave, but they moved in predictable patterns. She smiled slightly, knowing she could use that against them. "Stay behind me," she ordered her squad. "Watch, learn, and fight smart." The battle began. Myra moved with incredible speed, dodging and countering strikes from multiple Krithar simultaneously. She twisted under limbs, struck at joints, and used the terrain to her advantage. Her bare hands moved with precision and force, each blow calculated to incapacitate rather than kill. Her squad followed her lead, striking where the queen's warriors were most vulnerable. The Krithar faltered. They had never encountered humans who could anticipate their moves so effectively. Myra's unpredictability and tactical mind were disorienting. Even the queen's elite guard hesitated, unsure of how to respond to someone who fought without relying on weapons or technology. The queen stepped forward, her presence commanding the battlefield. Her claws were sharp, her reflexes faster than any human's, and her strength unmatched. She struck at Mara, and for the first time, Mara felt the raw power of an opponent far superior to any she had faced. But she did not panic. Instead, she studied the queen's movements, looking for patterns, timing, and openings. The fight became a deadly dance. Mara dodged, rolled, and countered with quick strikes to the queen's exposed areas. She used the terrain expertly, forcing the queen to stumble or overextend. Each time the queen struck with overwhelming force, Mara adapted, turning the alien's power against her. Mara's squad fought with renewed vigor, inspired by her courage. They moved in synchronization, supporting her, exploiting every opening she created. The humans' ingenuity and coordination were unmatched. The canyon, once a trap for the humans, now became a weapon against the aliens. Rocks fell, pits opened, and hidden spikes struck the Krithar at critical moments. Hours passed in a blur of strikes, dodges, and counterattacks. Mara's body ached, her hands bruised and bleeding, yet her determination never wavered. She had trained for this moment, not just to survive, but to inspire her people and prove that humans could face the impossible. At one point, the Queen attempted a direct strike, aiming to crush Mara with her immense strength. Mara rolled under the attack, grabbed the Queen's arm, and used her momentum to push her into a rock formation. Sparks flew as alien armor met stone, and the Queen momentarily stumbled. Mara seized the moment, striking at weak points, disorienting her opponent without overcommitting. The battlefield fell silent for a heartbeat. The Krithar army froze, watching their leader hesitate. Mara stood, chest heaving, hands raised in readiness. Her courage and skill had forced the Queen to pause, a feat no other human had ever achieved. The soldiers, both human and alien, recognized the significance. Mara was no ordinary fighter. She was a force that could not be ignored. The Queen recovered quickly, her eyes narrowing. She studied Mara carefully, realizing that brute strength alone would not defeat this human. Strategy, adaptability, and fearlessness were the human's greatest weapons. The Queen's fascination deepened, and she signaled her elite guard to hold position, giving Mara space. Mara did not falter. She knew this was the moment she had been preparing for. She moved with precision, striking, dodging, and creating opportunities for her squad to exploit. Every movement sent a clear message. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, thinkers, and fighters. Civilians who had hidden throughout the canyon watched in awe as Mara faced the Queen. Children pointed, adults whispered, and soldiers felt a surge of courage. Mara's actions were more than combat. They were a demonstration of what humanity could achieve when fear was set aside, and intelligence, courage, and determination were fully embraced. The Queen's gaze remained fixed on Mara. The alien generals whispered among themselves, their confidence shaken. The humans had proven something remarkable. They could not be crushed by force alone. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and willingness to face the impossible made them unpredictable and dangerous. Mara saw an opening. Using a combination of speed, leverage, and terrain, she forced the Queen backward, away from her elite guard. She did not strike to kill. She struck to demonstrate dominance, to show that human courage could challenge even the most powerful alien. The Krithar army, witnessing this, faltered. Their discipline wavered for the first time. The Queen paused, studying Mara. She recognized something she had never expected. Humans could fight without relying on superior strength or advanced technology. Their true power lay in their mind, their courage, and their unyielding will. Mara had proven this on the battlefield with nothing but her bare hands and determination. Hours of fighting had passed. The humans were exhausted, yet they had gained a decisive advantage. The Krithar army had suffered losses, and their morale was shaken. Mara's bare-handed combat had turned the tide, proving that humans were not easily defeated, and that courage and ingenuity could overcome overwhelming odds. The Queen, impressed and cautious, signaled her forces to retreat temporarily. She had learned an important lesson. Humans could not be underestimated. Mara had become more than a fighter. She had become a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and unbreakable will. Mara stood at the forefront, chest heaving, hands bloodied but steady. Her squad gathered around her, inspired by her example. Civilians slowly emerged from hiding, witnessing the impossible. A human had stood against the Krithar Queen herself and survived, unarmed and undaunted. By dawn, the canyon was quiet, lit by the soft glow of Vera's 7 twin suns. Mara flexed her hands, feeling the aches and bruises from the night's battle. She knew the Krithar would return, stronger and more determined. But she also knew something vital. Humanity had a new strength, one that the aliens could not anticipate. Her squad looked at her with admiration and renewed hope. They had seen firsthand what humans could achieve when fear was set aside, and strategy, courage, and adaptability guided every action. Mara's bare-handed fight against the Queen had proven that humans were more than survivors. They were innovators, leaders, and warriors capable of changing the course of the galaxy. Somewhere far above, Queen Zithara continued to observe. Her fascination with Myra had grown into respect, tinged with caution. This human had defied expectations, demonstrating that raw power alone was not enough to dominate. The queen understood that the humans of Vera 7 were a species to watch, and that Myra's influence could inspire them to heights even the Krithar had never imagined. Myra turned to her squad, her voice calm but firm. "Rest for now. Tomorrow we fight smarter. We use our minds as weapons. We defend our home and we show them that humans cannot be crushed." Her squad nodded, inspired and ready. The battle was far from over, but hope had been ignited, and it burned brighter than any weapon or alien technology. The canyon, once a place of fear, had become a symbol of human resilience. Mara had shown that courage, strategy, and determination were more powerful than brute strength. The humans of Vera 7 had survived an encounter that should have ended in defeat, and they had done so with ingenuity, courage, and the unshakable human spirit. Mara looked out over the horizon, knowing that the Krithar would return. But she also knew this. Humanity had awakened a force within itself that could not be ignored. And somewhere deep in orbit, the Krithar queen recognized it too. Mara's bare hands had struck more than flesh. They had struck fear, respect, and recognition. For the first time, the aliens understood that humans were unpredictable, resilient, and capable of astonishing feats. And for Mara, that realization was just the beginning. The sun rose over Vera 7, casting golden light across the jagged canyon walls. Myra stood at the top of a cliff, overlooking the valley where the Krithar forces were massing for what everyone knew would be the final assault. The humans were ready. Civilians who had learned to fight alongside soldiers now moved with confidence, setting traps and taking positions with precision. Every soldier, every civilian, every human on the canyon walls had seen Mara fight, and every one of them had learned from her courage. Mara's hands were still bruised and scarred from previous battles, but she flexed them deliberately, letting the memory of each strike fuel her resolve. She was no longer just a lieutenant. She was the symbol of humanity's will to survive. Her squad gathered around her, alert but calm, inspired by the strength of their leader. The Krithar fleet arrived in silence, their ships hovering with mechanical precision. Mara felt no fear. She had faced their warriors before, she had faced the queen, and she had survived. Humans were unpredictable, creative, and fearless in ways that the Krithar could not anticipate. Today, that unpredictability would be their greatest weapon. The first wave of Krithar descended into the canyon. Mara moved through her squad like a conductor leading an orchestra, each command precise, each movement intentional. Rocks tumbled from hidden ledges, pit traps opened beneath advancing aliens, and hidden spikes tore into armored limbs. The humans struck strategically, hitting weak points, exploiting gaps in alien armor, and using the terrain to their advantage. The Krithar faltered. They had never encountered an opponent who could anticipate their movements so effectively. Mara's squad was small compared to the invading army, but every strike, every trap, every coordinated maneuver amplified their strength. Humans were not strong individually, but together, guided by intelligence and courage, they were unstoppable. From orbit, Queen Zithara watched, her many eyes narrowing. She had studied Mara for days and had come to an understanding. This human was not just clever, she was extraordinary. Mara's bravery, strategy, and adaptability had challenged everything the Krithar thought they knew about inferior species. The queen knew that brute force alone would not end this war. She would need to confront Mara herself directly. Descending swiftly with her elite guard, the queen landed in the center of the battlefield. The ground trembled under her presence, and a hush fell over the Krithar soldiers. Even their bravest warriors hesitated, sensing the immense power of their leader. Mara's squad froze for a moment, awe mixing with determination. Mara, however, stepped forward, barehanded and unyielding. "I will not surrender," Mara called out, her voice clear across the battlefield. "Humans fight, we endure, and we will defend our home." The queen's gaze fixed on her. "You are courageous," she said, her voice deep and resonant. "But courage alone cannot save you." Mara did not flinch. She studied the queen's movements carefully. The alien strikes were fast and precise, but Mara had learned to anticipate, to read the rhythm of combat, to exploit even the smallest weakness. Every step she took, every pivot and dodge, was calculated to turn the queen's immense strength against her. The battle began in earnest. Myra moved like water, fluid and relentless, striking at joints, elbows, and knees, dodging claws that could crush bone in an instant. She rolled, twisted, and pushed, using the terrain to her advantage, forcing the queen to stumble or overextend. Every human soldier around her struck with precision, exploiting openings created by her maneuvers. The Krithar army watched in stunned silence. Their queen was powerful, relentless, and nearly impossible to predict, but the human before her was different. Myra did not fight with blind aggression. She fought with intelligence, observation, and creativity. Each strike was purposeful, each dodge a demonstration of control and skill. Hours passed in a blur of movement. Myra's hands were raw, her body aching, yet she pressed forward. She was aware of every strike, every rhythm, every pause, and she used them all to her advantage. The queen attacked with overwhelming force, yet Myra's agility and cunning allowed her to stay ahead, turning each attack into an opportunity. Her squad moved like extensions of her will. Soldiers, civilians, and volunteers struck where she indicated, leveraging rocks, falling debris, and makeshift weapons. Myra's bare-handed combat had become a symbol, a signal that humans were capable of more than the Krithar had ever imagined. At a critical moment, Myra saw an opening. Using a combination of her speed, strength, and intelligence, she forced the queen back, away from her elite guard. She did not strike to kill, but to assert dominance, to demonstrate that humans could resist, adapt, and overcome even the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Krithar army faltered. Their discipline cracked for the first time. Soldiers who had followed orders without question now hesitated. Humans, guided by Myra, pressed the advantage, pushing the aliens back through the canyon with calculated strikes and relentless courage. Queen Zithara paused. She studied Myra carefully, realizing that strength alone would not defeat this human. Courage, intelligence, and unpredictability were the human's weapons. The queen had faced countless species, but Myra's actions revealed something new. Humans could innovate, endure, and inspire in ways no one had anticipated. Myra's bare hands struck again and again, each movement precise and intentional. She did not strike to kill, but to demonstrate power, strategy, and skill. Every time the queen swung her claws, Myra redirected, dodged, or countered, using momentum, terrain, and observation. The humans surrounding her gained confidence, striking at weaknesses the queen could not guard fully. The battlefield seemed to hold its breath. Civilians emerged from hiding to watch the impossible, a single human standing against the Krithar queen, unarmed, fearless, and clever. Myra's courage ignited a spark in every observer. They were not helpless. They could fight, endure, and survive. Humans were more than prey. They were capable of greatness. The queen made a decision. She stepped back, signaling her elite guard to stand down. She had learned that victory through force alone was impossible against a human like Myra. The Krithar army would retreat, regroup, and reconsider their strategy, but today, humanity had proven its strength. Myra had demonstrated that courage, intelligence, and determination could overcome even the most powerful opponents. Myra stood at the center of the battlefield, bloodied, exhausted, but victorious. Her hands were raw and bruised, but they had struck more than flesh. They had struck fear, respect, and recognition. The humans around her cheered, some crying, some shaking with relief and pride. Myra's bare-handed courage had inspired a population, ignited hope, and changed the perception of humanity in the galaxy forever. The Krithar queen's many eyes studied Myra one last time. There was no anger in them now, only acknowledgement. This human was extraordinary. She had faced the impossible and emerged alive, demonstrating qualities the Krithar could not predict or control. The queen withdrew, signaling her army to retreat from Vera 7. Myra watched the aliens leave, understanding that this was not the end of their conflict, but a decisive moment. Humans had survived, adapted, and fought with ingenuity. Myra's actions had proven that even against overwhelming odds, courage and intelligence could prevail. Civilians began to emerge fully from their hiding places. Soldiers embraced each other, offering quiet thanks. Myra moved among them, checking for injuries, offering guidance, and reinforcing their resolve. She had led them not just to survive, but to fight with strategy, creativity, and hope. By nightfall, the canyon was quiet. Fires from the destroyed alien machines flickered, casting shadows on the rocky walls. Myra flexed her hands, feeling the aches and soreness from the day's battle. She had survived the impossible, but more importantly, she had proven the power of human ingenuity and courage. Her squad gathered around her, tired but unbroken. They had seen what humans could achieve when fear was set aside, and when intelligence, courage, and determination guided every action. Mara's bare-handed fight against the Queen had shown that humans were not simply survivors. They were thinkers, innovators, and warriors capable of changing the outcome of history. Somewhere in orbit, Queen Zithara observed the aftermath. She had faced countless species in her long life, yet Mara's courage, skill, and ingenuity had altered her perception. Humans were no longer just a species to dominate. They were a force that could inspire, challenge, and endure. Mara had become more than a soldier. She had become a symbol. Mara looked out over the canyon, watching the horizon where alien ships had vanished. She knew the Krithar would return, stronger and more determined. But humanity had discovered a truth the aliens could not ignore. Intelligence, courage, and unpredictability were weapons more powerful than technology or strength alone. She turned to her squad and civilians who had gathered around, speaking with quiet authority. "Rest now," she said. "Tomorrow we prepare again. We defend our home. We show them that humans cannot be crushed, cannot be broken, and cannot be defeated when we stand together." The humans nodded, inspired by her example. Children who had hidden from the Krithar watched her with wide eyes, understanding for the first time that courage and intelligence could overcome even the most powerful adversary. Mara's actions would be remembered, not just as a single battle, but as a turning point, a testament to the human spirit. As the twin moons rose over Vera 7, casting silver light across the canyon, Mara stood silently, her hands still bloodied, her body exhausted, but her spirit unbroken. She had faced the impossible, fought with ingenuity and courage, and emerged victorious. Humanity had survived, adapted, and inspired, and the galaxy would never forget it. The canyon, once a place of fear and despair, now symbolized hope, resilience, and the unyielding strength of humans. Mara's bare hands had carved a legacy into history. They had proven that humans could endure, innovate, and triumph, even against the most powerful forces in the galaxy. And in that moment, Mara understood something profound. Humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, not their numbers, not their strength. It was their spirit. The Krithar Queen had watched, learned, and respected that spirit. Mara had not only protected her people, but had shown that humans could inspire, lead, and survive where others would fail. And as long as she lived, as long as her people fought alongside her, the human spirit would continue to shine, undaunted, unpredictable, and unstoppable.